Yep.
Hi, our group is investigating the relationship with the students and town of Geneseo in respect to the drinking. I'm Sterling Brown.
I'm Chris.
I'm Tom.
Brian.
And one question we had was, has the issue of student drinking ever come up in town board meetings or other community discussions like that?
Does the issue of drinking come up?
Or more of like student drinking and how that affects the town?
Yes. I mean, yeah, that's obviously an issue. But it's, I don't know how to say it. It's not awful. Certainly, you guys have looked at some of this stuff on your website, that you're developing, the websites that you're developing. So certainly there are some issues, particularly late at night, and for the most part it's getting woken up. People leaving places where they're having a party. Every now and then there are certainly some more serious incidents. You mentioned a young fellow that died of alcohol poisoning. About a year before that, there was received very little publicity. But a guy, the exact same thing had happened, but he wasn't a Geneseo student. He was here visiting for the weekend, and they found him on Saturday morning, kind of behind the library. And again, alcohol poisoning. So it certainly is something that comes up on a regular basis. But there's also a great deal of attention is being paid to it, and the college itself is doing a great job addressing the issue. Dr. Bonfilio in the student life area has organized this Healthy Campus Coalition. And they meet now, it used to be just once a semester, but I think they're meeting monthly now, and that involves students, some law enforcement, owners of places that sell alcohol, and they're addressing then a lot of these issues. And actually, I don't want to give it to you now because you'll probably read it now rather than later, but this came to every home in the village that gets a water bill. So this was included in the water bill, and it simply says, be a good neighbor, stand up for one another. And then inside, it talks about why irresponsible use of alcohol is a public health problem. So it's something, it says, being a good neighbor, what does it take if you throw a party? And then it has some of the village regulations in the back. So it's something that Bonfilio, as I said, is very much aware of, and is taking a lot of steps to try to combat it. Now, there's been some discussion about, in some circles, about lowering the drinking age and how that would solve the problem. There's absolutely no evidence anywhere that that would solve the problem. Any statistics that have been gathered at the national level have said that all that does is to push things back down. So instead of drinking at 18, the kids are drinking at 14 or what have you. So that's not a solution. So we have to live with the problem, and as I said, I think it's being dealt with.
Vis-a-vis it being dealt with in these great new initiatives and stuff, give them a little reality check. How many of you first years have been drinking since you've been here at a party, in the dorms, in a bar?
In a bar?
Well,
Oh, come on, don't be naive. Bench drinking. Oh, you were a little more honest the other day. Yeah, there were double that number of hands for what came up the other day. He's not gonna take pictures, he's not. And these are first semester, first years.
Yeah.
So, yes, lots of things in place, those things are not out there on Saturday night.
Well, a couple of things that have taken place, and it's not something that you guys like, but there's been a considerable amount of enforcement by the Geneseo Police Department. And
that I think is where I see a difference in the village, is
Yeah,
not the college's action, but the
I think
village.
in the first 2 weeks of school, there was something like more than 80 tickets were issued for underage drinking and possession of alcohol. Open container, what we call the open container law. And every weekend then, we get a report on Monday mornings of the weekend activity. And every weekend there are numerous people that have been arrested. And I don't know what's happening to them once they get to court. But I do know that the use of fraudulent licenses and what have you, that is being handled fairly, not necessarily from our end with the village, but more with if it's a license. I don't know whether the state is taking licenses of motor vehicles, is taking actually licenses away if they've been altered. But if you're going into the bars, don't use somebody else's ID. It's, yeah, that's not a good thing. So I think that the village has clamped down, mainly because, as a result of some outside funding that has allowed extra officers to be on. And there are disorderly conduct, a lot of disorderly conduct things. And as I said, the open container as well as underage drinking. And selling of alcohol too, for these parties. If you have a house and have some money that's being collected and you're giving something to drink, that turns out to be an offense that is punishable at the state level, not just at the local level.
Depending how they charge it, what kind of felony they make it, it can severely hamper your future. If you have a certain kind of felony conviction, you can't get into law school, you can't be a teacher, you can't, I mean, you can't vote in some, it depends on what level felony they charge it at. But I've had students who have been knocked right out of all those things, being the money person.
And this was fairly close to home. I mentioned that our son was at Allegheny, and while he graduated in '88 or something, but he would always try to, he was frugal, always tried to kind of save whatever money he could. So he sent us a note home one day on the back and used an envelope that had come from the college, from Allegheny College. What he forgot to do was to take out what was inside. And that was a letter from the dean to him saying that he had been caught drinking alcohol in the dorm, and that if he was caught a second time, that there would be more severe action to be taken. So this came home to me. I saved it. This was his sophomore year. I saved that till he graduated. I handed it back to him upon his graduation. So we have dealt with the same kind of issues as you guys are going through. And we didn't punish the kid, and we knew that he was drinking just like anybody knows everybody else is drinking. But again, got to be responsible.
While all of these,
I think we need to hit at least one question from everybody, before we go too far.
Hi, we're the Drunks. I'm Jessica. We're the Drunks.
You know the Brooks, what were you doing last night, honey?
Too a little tired right now.
I'm Val. I'm Danielle.
I'm Matt.
I'm Adam.
And we were wondering if you ever received any complaints about the hunt specifically.
No. No. The hunt, as you are well aware, is one of the, I think it's the second oldest fox hunt. And it sounds like they're going out chasing foxes. For the most part, what they're doing is going out and riding across the countryside and having a wonderful time doing that. It is a town issue, not necessarily a village issue. But one of the things that you folks should make yourself do is the last, I think it's generally the last Saturday in September is the opening day of Hunt. And it's at 7:30 in the morning. People are all bleary-eyed, but just to watch the hounds and the horses, and there might be 150 riders, and just they parade down Main Street. It's over in 5 minutes, but it's a gorgeous, gorgeous sight. But you guys got to get up and
A few of them did get up this
We
time.
went.
Yeah, some of the Fox people went, nobody else.
Yeah, and it's fun, you know, and it brings people out standing on the corners and saying hello with their cups of coffee and doing that. But no, there haven't been complaints about the hunt at all. I noticed that one of the things that you folks have talked about is that there's not much interaction between the college and the community within the hunt. And the hunt is not just Geneseo. People that belong to the Genesee Valley Hunt Club. Some are from Pennsylvania, some from Buffalo, some from Rochester. It's just not
Some are from England.
people in Geneseo. But it takes two things. One, it takes a horse, and two, it takes the ability to ride a horse to belong to the hunt. And they then, after this opening day of hunt, they have a good breakfast. So generally it starts down the south end of town, and then they eventually go riding across the countryside and end up then at the north end of town for the hunt breakfast. I've never been. I've been to one hunt event in my life. That is an invitation to attend. It might have been a hunt ball, I can't remember. But it's a different group of people. And I don't think it's exclusionary kind of thing, but hey, as I said, you gotta have a horse. That's the first thing.